This is basically a case study that we in Apoteket performed some time ago, actually pre-COVID, but still it's actually more valid now since we see some big changes in customer behavior. So let's go right ahead. Just a few words about Apoteket. I'm not sure if you're all familiar with this, probably not, but if you are in Sweden, you're probably familiar. So this is the leading pharmacy chain in Sweden. So we do have net sales about 20 billion SEK. That would be 2 billion euros. So we operate about 400 stores and 620 representatives, meaning smaller shops typically housed in a grocery store, for example. We do have about 35 million customers, that meaning actually receipts, that's transactions, both in store and also online, of course. And the traffic number here, online visitors, is a bit low now because it's actually exploded during COVID. So 25 million, we are, you can probably, well, not really double, but close in terms of visitors. So we got an app, actually got more than 1.5 million downloads. There's some heavy usage there as well. Also, we do have basically three areas of the business where we operate. One is obviously the consumer part, which is the one we're talking about here now, but also we deliver to hospitals and other instances in the area. We got the loyalty program. It's more than 3 million actually now members, and we do have about 3,200 employees in our mostly stores, of course. And just being a company in Sweden, we are quite international in terms of our employees. We represent 88 countries and have 55 different languages spoken. So let's go on. The background and the context of this. So if we just take a brief look on the pharmacy market in Sweden, this is the online share of all the sales for the Swedish pharmacies in total. So now we can see that basically 30% of the sales is happening online. And if you look on the volume, it's the volume is 30% and sales is 20%. And this is from November last year. And you can see a bit of drop in the numbers in December, January, but now in February we're seeing it peaked again. So it's just above this number as we speak now. And if we look on the yearly growth rate, it's 50%. It depends on where you actually measure. But you can see it's a massive shift from offline to online in the pharmacy market. Yeah. Quite often when you start talking about e-commerce in retail, you are afraid of cannibalization. Yeah. So internally we have a big debate going on, even though that we actually own our own stores, we operate them, but still we have kind of a debate going on. Is this bad for the company? Is e-commerce cannibalize on the store sales? So I was a bit interested in that question. So I started to dig a bit into the numbers and found actually a few things. If we look on the left-hand side here, you can see the yearly spend. And we're talking about omni-channel here, but it's really, well, two channels. It's either store or online. So just to simplify things. But if you look on the store-only customer, and you can see a certain spend there. And if you look on the online-only customer, you got a little, well, lower spend. But if you look on the customer that actually spending or buying in both channels, then you got 42% more yearly spend on that. So that's good news, right? Also, if we start looking on the right-hand side of the graph there to the right, you can see the number of unique store visits. actually how many times are actually visiting either the physical store or the online store. And you can see that in this case as well, the omnichannel customer, actually the customer that's both in the physical store and online, is the customer that's visiting the most frequently. Okay, and if we take a look on churn, this is actually a very interesting picture, but I had to blur out a few numbers here. But if we just focusing on a few relevant numbers to this case, so you can see the churn rate here year on year. So you're looking on a 12-month period. You can see you got the churn rate in store about 15%. And if you look on the omnichannel customers, you got basically half of that, 8%. So you can see that the omnichannel customer seems to demonstrate a low churn rate. Okay. So this kind of us to a business opportunity. So you can see the yearly spend in the omnichannel customers is higher. The number times of visiting customers in the omnichannel case is actually higher. And also, as we saw last year in the picture, you can see the churn rate is basically half of the store rate. So the question here is the omnichannel customer or e-commerce really cannibalizing on store sales? So we found those kind of signals interesting. So we decided to look a bit further. Could we, by using predictive analytics and build a predictive model, actually convert, if you like, customers that are store-only customers to start shopping both online and in store, of course, basically to become an omnichannel customer. So we took a look on our member data. So we basically set out in the historical data to see those customers that made the first online purchase, just being in the past store-only customers. What kind of signals, what kind of variables, what kind of characteristics could we see with those customers? And then we can take a look and compare those customers to see, well, can we actually find similar customers, but they haven't made the first online purchase? So basically, we ran through the database or a big chunk of it, because we would like to keep a chunk of the database just to verify the model, to not include every single customer in this part of the model training. So on the right-hand side, you can see we came out with a probability of becoming a high or medium or low probability in terms of becoming omnichannel customer based on this. So once we looked this, we looked on quite a few different parameters. This is just an example of a few parameters that we were testing and we based our model on. So you can see here we looked on 1.7 million transactions from 1.7 million members, I would say. Close to 200 product groups. We looked of product categories, about 60 different. Obviously, gender, age, how long you've been a member, the zip code, actually where you're living. You can see the total spend on a certain time period. If you happen to do the transaction and purchase on a specific weekday, or if it's actually a weekend. The average spend and frequency, if you opt into mobile, basically SMS communications and also push notifications from the app. You can see the opt-in for email, opening rate on email, campaigns and offer, what kind of campaigns you're an offer you're attracted by, and basically what's the first purchase online, what kind of product categories and product specific were you actually buying, and so forth. So we tried to identify all the different variables and put into the this model. So what happened then? Yeah, we constructed a model basically on regression analysis, and also added a few other spices to this, and we trained the model, and it's actually turned out to be quite robust and stable model. So if you measure it from a scale from 1 to 5, this is basically 4, just above 4, and we took some sample data from the database, which we haven't used for training purposes, and then tested the model, and we can see it's a pretty good model. So in other words, this model is fairly good in order to predict the stuff we would like to predict. Basically, how can we define a customer that's got the potential of being an omnichannel customer? Basically, a store customer that haven't made a first purchase yet. So what kind of communication can we target this specific customer with in order to transform it? Okay. Yes, so this is just an example of what kind of data and what kind of results you get from doing and applying this model. So again, this is just an example, but if you look on one parameters, in this case, we're talking about opening rate on email, which actually happened to be a quite important factor. And if you think about this, it's not very strange, but still, you can see in the numbers as well. So the customers, if you look on the right-hand side here, you can see it's a high opening rate. And if you look on the colors, it's related to the green ones. Here is the high probability, and the blue one is the medium, of course, and the gray is the low. So you can see here is if you got a high opening rate, and if you got this H, you can see here in the green, you are quite likely to become a omnichannel customer. So we kind of ran through all the different scenarios based on this model, and you can actually learn a lot about your customer base if you just define the different decision trees like this. So this is good news for a model. So now we can kind of segment, and we can start to actually define and pinpoint the customers where we think they got the highest probability of actually becoming again an omnichannel customer. And also you can use this model, of course, to target the medium segment here. They are quite likely to become a omnichannel customer, and you would like to transform them into, well, a high probability, and obviously the lower ones, what can you do in order to transform them into medium high probability in order to become a omnichannel customer, if that's your objective. Yeah. Okay. So if we move on to next picture here. So based on the model, we can basically define and pinpoint close to 200,000 customers. They're very high probability in order to be transformed into omnichannel customer. And also the good news here is basically all of them have opted in for email communication, and they as we saw in the last picture, they seem to be quite interested in actually open and reading about our communication. So that's good news. And the rest of the 10% here, actually, they opted in for SMS communication. So based on this, we decided that email is probably quite good channel to contact these customers, and also the rest of the 10%, which is lacking email opt-in, they actually opted in on SMS communication. So these were the two channels of choice when it comes to communication with this target group. So the next step in this, now we got the business case. We defined this model. We trained the model. We applied the model. We pinpointed the customer, the target groups of about 200,000 consumers that we would like to target. And now we're moving into the next step, which is basically communication. Yeah, so we would like to start using all this communication. Well, turn back the time for a few seconds here. I believe we, as quite a few other companies, are a bit were a bit like spray and pray approach when it comes to communication with the customers. So not very sophisticated. We were shooting out different messages, advertising different campaigns or products. Not very personalized, kind of same size fits all approach. Obviously, that's, as we all know, as marketers, this is not a very good approach. So we need to tailor-made the communication a bit, being more relevant. And as you can see in the lower half of the picture here, you can see the green, the blue, and the gray different segments. And obviously, again, this case is about the green segments, a high probability case. And we obviously would like to use a focus message. Obviously, also you like to have the you need to inspire them and talking about well, relevant context of this, why you should start shopping online, for example, and other stuff you can learn about the product. Again, the more relevant you can be, the better result you will have in terms of effects for your communications. Yeah.
Mikael, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I think when you're moving your headphones, your microphone kind of rubs from your jacket and it produces a bit noise, so we can't hear you. Otherwise, we hear you very well.
All right, let's try it this way. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, sorry about that, but we keep on going. The next step in this, obviously, we are going to target this target group here, the high probability target group. And of course, we need to define what message should we send across, which products and offering should we actually communicating, what's the frequency in the communication do we need, and how many reminders should we use. So again, we turn to the data to see historical data to see what actually triggers the customers historically to actually become the omnichannel customers. So we learn again that it's no magic, of course. So you need to be relevant. I will come to that in a moment. Just what specific parts we need to communicate. And of course, you can, as you all know, if you're running a retail operations, both in physical environment and online environment, you can see what kind of products and offerings, what's the consumer behavior in each channel. We can see a quite different behavior from customers online compared to the customers offline. But now when more and more customers are moving from store to online, you can see they are kind of shifting in behavioral to some extent, but not fully. So you can see that in total, that's a kind of shift in behavior amongst the online customers. So you need to be aware of that. And of course, what kind of frequency we're talking about here, so we're not ending up with spam. So you need to be relevant. You need to select this frequency carefully. Also, again, should this be an SMS or should it be email? People do have a bit different expectations. If you communicate with the SMS and email, of course, you might expect communication with SMS to be a bit more personalized than perhaps like emails. Emails could sometimes be more generic. But again, if you like to see some results, you need to be very precise and very relevant. And of course, how many reminders? That could be individual, but we can see kind of a clear pattern here with all the consumers we use for training the model with. So if we moved into well, condensed, if you like, our findings and how to communicate. By the way, you can see the examples to the right here. This is not the true communication in this case. This is just an example of email communication. But again, we were using a clean and focused message to really target this group. Obviously, we like to communicating the specific unique selling points. Why should you as a user start shopping online? Not that you are going to stop shopping in the physical store, but you can see there are some upsides, of course, with shopping online. Could be free shipping, could be fast delivery. You can buy online, you can actually return in store. So you got that kind of insurance, if you like. So people, actually our target group, could sometimes be a bit nervous if you're going to buy stuff online, if you don't get it and so forth. Obviously, we also inserted our contact details to our customer center, contact center, so they can actually help you with a return, for example, or you could track your parcel if it's well, not arriving in the time frame you're expecting and so forth. And also you could buy online and pick up in store as a safety. It could be a first step to the online sphere. So also, of course, displaying products, they're more likely to purchase from first timers. So again, from the model and from numbers, we can see some specific products, and we need to tailor-made a specific offerings related to these products to really give the consumers a push and well, incentive to start using the online channel as well. So the offer we enter this is, again, it looks like not very rocket science, if you like, but 20% off when you're spending more than 30 euros in this case. So that's that was the offer we kind of defined it based on the knowledge we got from this study. And also we just realized we just need one reminder through email, otherwise you just let the customer go. So all in all, this was what we were trying to do and what we actually done. So if we just considering the results here in a moment, but just to summarize again, this entire case study and basically our test kind of led us to more data-driven approach in Apoteket. I mean, obviously we got loads of data because we got quite a few visitors, and we got many transactions and so forth. So this was a big first step for us to perhaps in a more structured way utilize our data in order to be more creative in terms of seeing some results. Obviously, there is some you could say challenges. GDPR, of course, is one thing here. Also, being in our business, we got a lot of data, of course. Some, if you're talking about prescriptions, is obviously very sensitive data, so we can't really use that at all. But if you are a member in our customer loyalty program, you agree to the fact that we actually can process some parts of the data, and that's the data we use in this case. So again, if we look into results, what happened? As you remember, we had about 200,000 customers that we pinpoint as a target group for this, and we made this email communication, and we made a reminder. And if we look 12 months from when we sent the first email, which is now, we can see the effects on how many customers that actually turn into omnichannel customers. And that's actually just above 50% of all the customers. So we managed to get 110,000 customers of these, about 200,000 customers actually started to shop both offline and of course online, so becoming an omnichannel customers. So thank you very much. This was our case study here in Apoteket. So I'm happy to answer any questions or comments on this, if anybody got some comments.